Welcome everybody. Welcome to ConnectX 2026. We want to thank the Wireless Infrastructure Association for hosting again. As always, they're doing a spectacular job with the show. We want to thank all of the sponsors who are here as well. Today, I have an esteemed panel before you to discuss AI, automation, and how we're moving from chaos to clarity in data. To my far left is Nat Mangum, the CEO of Selective Site Consultants. Selective Site Consultants, I have actually worked with for probably 25 years or more. It's been a long time. Nationwide turnkey firm that does everything from real estate activity through engineering and permitting and zoning. Well known throughout the industry. To his immediate right is DJ Grosso, who is the SVP of Technology, Operations, and a lot of other things over at Harmony Towers. He is a current customer of Inorsa, and they're doing outstanding work at Harmony Towers in automating workflows, and they're really an outstanding company and are cutting edge on what they're doing. And to my immediate left is Sean Shahini, co-founder and CEO of Inorsa. Gentlemen, before I ask a question, I just want to let the audience know that one of the things that we're here to discuss, or actually several things, are we want to talk about where deployment actually breaks down, and not only deployment but asset management and how that affects deployment. We're going to discuss taking documents that we all know. If you're anywhere in the development deployment industry and the wireless communications, you understand that there are multitudes of documents that come in when you either start a project or you own a tower or you buy a tower. We're going to talk about how we organize that and again create clarity from chaos. Lastly, we want to talk about what AI is doing today in the industry and how it's currently being implemented. And we're also going to get a perspective from Nat about why Selective Site Consultants is looking at ways that they can improve their workflows and automation. So with that said, gentlemen, the first question I have for you is, if we start with looking at the day-to-day of your operations, before you begin any workflows or any processes or anything like that, can you talk just a little bit for a moment about how your team spends its time in just basically ingesting data, sorting through it, and maybe talking about the challenges associated with that? Can we start with you, DJ?
Sure. Is my mic on? Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So I'll look at it from a colo perspective. Co-location project management rolls up through my organization, and one of the items that the colo team has to do when they receive an application is they have to cross-reference the RFDS, the colo application, the lease agreement. There's a number of other documents that they have to cross-reference, and that takes a lot of time to sort through. And so I think having the data to be pulled at your fingertips, and that's something that we've leveraged Inorsa for, is extracting this data out of these documents so we have it and we can compare it against other sources. That has saved an enormous amount of time. So I think just on the colo front alone, having that option has been really good for us. Also, understanding more about our documents where we might not record that in our CRM or other places. We might have a special project, a one-off project, where we have to reference all of our lease agreements for a certain clause. We need to extract that information, and that's another thing that we do. So on a day-to-day, it could be any one of those things. Right. But that's what we've leveraged the Inorsa platform for.
And I assume that what you're looking at is how that streamlines your workflows and creates better accuracy in the data.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so instead of having to hire outside firms or anything like that, we can manage these things internally by simply querying our documents and extracting that information.
Right.
So that's been a large time saver.
So that's from the standpoint of kind of, we'll call it either an application workflow or it could even affect M&A. Nat, from your perspective, now you're on the services side, providing services to tower companies and to wireless carriers and whatnot. What's your perspective?
This is a very top of mind topic for me because we just became an Inorsa client. And in that process, you have asked us to kind of really give attention to our current workflow, really document within those time frames, who is responsible for and how does the data move. And it's quite eye-opening, this experience. I'll speak to a structural analysis. I feel like that's just a very straightforward task that we're hired to do. Also a straightforward task that a NORSA can quickly help with. We've learned that we spend about 18 hours for one structural analysis of people's time. I would say about 15 hours of that is an engineer's time. We're one of these classic kind of Midwest companies that we do everything in-house. We try not to outsource anything. We don't have any overseas type of resources helping us, and we've kind of pride ourselves on just this in-house effort. To answer your question of where within this 18 hours can we kind of see process improvement through this technology? Mm-hmm. It's certainly with data validation. We're getting data from all types of places, depending on who hires us. Sometimes it's a carrier, sometimes it's a tower owner. Sometimes it's an equipment manufacturer, right? And data is coming to us in the forms of digital twins. It's coming to us in the form of prior structurals or the foundation or possibly the lease, an amendment, easement rights. I mean, this data is coming in everywhere. And as we all know, there's not always consistency across platforms and consistency across documents. This, to us, has to be validated. And we're doing this manually currently. NORSA is going to help us quickly with this. We can get started earlier, which is one of the biggest culprits of time. And we can be kind of rest assured when validated that we can proceed with the truth.
Right. And
that's something we're very sensitive to. So that's kind of my initial answer on the structural analysis question.
Thanks, Nat. I appreciate that. It's funny because earlier I don't know if he's here. Yes, he is. An old friend of mine from 9X Mobile days, Ed, former Chief Technology Officer of American Towers here, and him and I were discussing, and he asked me what we do, and I said, hey, remember when we used to sit in those war rooms and we'd roll out blueprints and then we'd ship them all over the country to different people to review and whatnot? I said, well, we're eliminating a lot of that, and we're eliminating that the need for people to review all of these separate documents and validate information, right? So Sean, maybe you could talk for a moment about kind of how you got a NORSA to this point.
Yeah, I think so. The idea behind starting NORSA was automating all the engineering tasks, so construction drawings, structure analysis, those type of documents. But to create those outputs, you have to create accurate kind of inputs too. So a big part of company became, all of these assets live forever, and there are all these tens of years of documentation that exist on these, and making sure, and we talk about source of system of record all the time. I think that's more of an older concept of all of these kind of asset management kind of platforms where you manually input information into them. Now, NORSA built a system of validation where we can quality control all the data points, making sure whether you're on the services side, you're just doing structural construction drawings, and next time you may go back to the same site or you may go to a new site. Mm-hmm. Or if you're an asset owner, you have to maintain the asset for a long time until you sell it or maybe you keep it forever. Kind of creating that source of truth and system of validation is a core concept. And I think it's where the most important part of what AI does in general, it's just making sure that you have accurate starting points before you start doing anything. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you. So let me ask a point, both DJ and Nat, with respect to what that means, the verified source of truth. I think there's similarities in how you both look at it, but there's some differences too. So DJ, let me go back to you and just talk about the importance of a verified source of truth, kind of what that means in the life cycle of your asset.
Well, just piggybacking off of what Sean was saying as well. I mean, when you think about data and data integrity, any AI system is not going to fix your data. If your data is trash, any AI system that you put on top of that is going to be compounded into absolute chaos. So you have to have good systems, good data to begin with. And then once you have that information in your systems, you can extract it and start to put together some really, really transformative things within a company. And so your question, let me get back to your question. Can you repeat it real quick?
Verified source of truth, and kind of what that means to Harmony Towers and how it affects the workflow and the kind of the tower asset lifecycle.
Yeah, I mean, once you define the verified source of truth, that's like the hardest part, is ingesting information that you believe to know about your own organization through your own files and through your own systems. Having that in your fingertips allows you to accelerate decision velocity, right? So you're able to make decisions much quicker, and that could mean revenue in the door quicker. It could mean a reduction in your expenses. I mean, Harmony Towers has a really simple construct. You know, before we purchase any product, we look at it, can it increase revenue, decrease our expenses, or increase operational efficiency? And so when we can do all three across the board, then to us, that's a home run. And, you know, we have to weigh the pros versus the cons. So our simplistic way of viewing.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah. From your perspective, Nat, let's go back to the beginning. You talked about structural analysis, but prior to that, any project that you get in the door, I'm assuming that whether it's a carrier, whomever it is dumping all of this information on you, right? So the time, the importance of developing a source of truth, and going back to the name of our panel today, chaos to clarity. What's your perspective on that?
In the end, we have to remember we're tasked with making these projects construction ready. That's really what we're tasked to do. And so we have a suite of services, whether it be A&E, site acquisition, kind of site walks, regulatory, zoning, permitting, you know, all the way to construction ready. And so when you talk about how important is it to validate information, the importance doesn't always just sit with the singular division of engineering.
Right.
All these other skill sets and departments are relying on that. And so there's so much hand-to-hand handoffs in this process of like the real estate to engineering to construction documents through a jurisdiction. So getting that first step correct, that validation step correct, allows all the other steps to be successful.
Right.
And so, yes, I mean, a product like this, to where we can really understand and prepare and plan for this to go. And when it does go, it doesn't have to stall, stop, clarify, rework, start over, go through again. That's where the time's going to be made up, in addition to just these efficiencies of data moving faster.
So this is off script for you guys a little bit. So
let's do it.
Here it comes. So when I think about that, I think about the other savings, which is downstream workflows, right? That you're looking at what time is potentially saved by getting it right the first time so that there's not go-backs and redesigns and everything else. Could you just speak to that for a few seconds?
I'll kind of start again. Like 20 years ago, when a site walk occurred, the engineers showed up. So did the construction manager. So did the site acquisition representative.
I remember that.
Everybody showed up.
Right.
And they showed up and they collaborated, they strategized, they got on the same page so the plan would move forward from there. You know, the industry's evolved. There's been a lot of price compression in this industry. Therefore, there's not just the resources to have everybody show up. But the strategic nature of this business still remains. And so, yes, like having it right early so everybody's on the same page is where I feel like what AI products like this are going to buy us back. Like that 18 hours I was referencing earlier, if we can save half of that, well, then we can reinvest that time in our internal collaboration with A&E, SIDAC, field, and also collaboration back with the client to make sure we're all pointing in the same direction.
Great point. Sean, maybe you could address for a moment, because your background is a structural engineer. So when you started in Orsa and you started thinking about automating drawings as step one, were you also thinking about those other downstream events that happen and reworks and all of that?
So, I mean, as an engineer, I thought that the drawings are the most important part. But I think as we got more customers, and the first kind of goal of the company is always to become the customer's trusted advisor and then solve other problems. And at the core of it, Orsa is a data company. So we create clean data for our customers to do their tasks and create those outputs. So the initial I think the product idea was one thing, but the goal is maximizing revenue per FT for customers, getting things through the pipeline as fast as possible so we can build a lot more volume. That hasn't changed. That was the initial idea. Now, if it was drawings or structural or applications or QC or permitting documents, that kind of is a variable, and industry changes, new things come up. As we save more times, we make 18 hours, maybe 1 hour, there are maybe 10 other deliverables that get created. So we're always chasing that to make sure our customers kind of are able to over-deliver compared to competition to their customers so they can become successful.
So when we talk about, again, moving from chaos to clarity, the initial step we've all talked about is developing this source of truth, ingesting data, being able to extract data. Let's talk about the outputs just for a moment. I know you talked about structural analysis, Nat, for a second, but what other things are you thinking about, Nat, as far as outputs, structural being one?
Well, in my business, we're very sensitive to the concept of forecasting. You know, the communication we have on a weekly meeting with a client for a site-by-site, that's the repeated question that's asked. Are we going to hit our forecast? What is the forecast? You know, to give us strength to, one, tighten our turnaround times, to actually reduce the expectation of when something's going to be delivered, but also increase the percentage by which we achieve our forecast. You know, service businesses like ours, you know, are extremely sensitive to forecast.
Right.
And so proper data early, proper planning early will allow us to forecast more accurately in a tighter fashion. And like, there's not a person in our organization that's not excited about just relying on a more honest forecast.
Great. Thank you for that. DJ, how about you guys? How do you think about outputs versus just clean data, but how do you use it?
Well, I can tell you the importance of outputs, right? I'll give you guys a story. A long time ago, 25 years ago, I was a volunteer firefighter in my hometown in upstate New York, right? And every once in a while...
Hold on a second. I didn't know you were from upstate New York.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Every once in a while, we'd get a call. We'd get on the truck, you're amped up, your blood is flowing, and you're running to whatever situation calls for that, right? You're putting on your equipment, you're trying to identify kind of what house you need to go to,
right.
And every once in a while, somebody would come out and they would point to the house that you needed to go to. In that moment of clarity, everything just makes sense. And then you could say, this is where we need to go in and conduct business. And then you get in, you do your thing. When I think about the Anorsa platform, and I think about extracting information, you're giving it a target, and you're scaling that target across your entire portfolio. And it's pointing the finger saying, this is where this information resides. Out of all these tens of thousands of even hundreds of thousands of pages, it's saying this answer is here, and you scale that across your portfolio, and then you're able to extract that and make meaningful insights and meaningful decisions based off that information. So I kind of like put the two in the same bucket, but it points out exactly where you need to go and where you tell it to go. And I think that's really meaningful in the decision-making process.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. Sean, maybe you can give us just a little bit of how the roadmap is developed and where it's going?
So initially it was just automating the task, but I think now with all the AI changes, you can find any tools to answer just questions out of documents. That's pretty generic. So what Inorsa is focusing on, majority-wise, is what it's really, really hard for other people to build, and at the end of the day, it gives value to the customer. So it's a little bit more than just Q&A, for example, from the documents. All companies have their own way of doing things, from getting permits to getting documents across the board. And that's basically is that context of how you do business is your company's brain. And that's how things work. So what Inorsa is doing right now is getting all the knowledge of an organization within kind of that Nora brain, or that brain of the company you're building, that's very custom and owned by us. So they can automate their task next. So it's probably 10 steps further than what a typical ChatGPT or Claude Code or like all of these things can do.
Hold on one second. Can you guys still hear Sean? No.
You can't.
You're going in and out. Can we get maybe a hand mic? Okay. Just hold on, let me get a mic for you. It's the setup for you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So what I was saying is create.
Hold on. Shut the pack off because it's. As long as you shut, you should be good. Okay.
All right. All right. So what I was saying is, it's not just Q&A out of documents. It's important to kind of preserve the ways each company operates, from engineering to site act to kind of finance and everything. So the next step of evolution of kind of really advanced AI products is the context of the model and how we behave and how we capture that and preserve it for the customer. So, and that's one of the big announcement we made at this show is kind of Nora brain or the brain of the organization. You can't hear.
It's going in and out.
It's going in and out.
While we're doing that, let me just jump to you guys for a moment. Let's talk just for a second, and Sean, this is important for you to hear. He's going to get you some. Is he getting you another mic?
You can go.
Well, we'll share it for now. I want to talk about, real quick, where we believe AI is currently not in use. It finds challenges in fixing workflows or auto-generating, whatever the case may be. I just want to talk to where it currently may fall a little short, but we know there's a roadmap to it. And I'm actually going to turn to DJ first, because I'd like your input on that, just to think about where the manual intervention is still needed.
Yeah, I think that there's, within AI, I mean, AI is, in all its greatness, there's still gaps. And I think those gaps rest in the edge cases that we have. We might have an edge case that doesn't necessarily fall in the construct that we've designed, the AI tool for. And so I think that needs to be monitored quite a bit. And I think that still requires some manual effort. And we're in the wireless industry, right? There's a lot of edge cases that are out there, right? There's a lot of things that can go sideways, and we have to manage them. And human intervention is much needed. But for the things that AI can take care of, we're gonna still have human oversight, but we're gonna recognize the time savings for those types of things.
Right.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Nat, from your perspective, just you're new to AI and automation, new with the Norse as a customer, but expectations, I think, are important. And maybe you can talk to the audience about what your expectations are today and maybe what they are tomorrow.
This is a conversation we have internally amongst our staff. AI is such a big word, and at times AI is a threatening word to a workforce.
Yeah.
And so culture impact is something that we're really discussing. I'm still a believer that I believe AI is a job creator more than it's going to be a job killer. But really, with respect to time allocation, when you speak of edge cases, that's exactly the point, is we have to pour in equal amount of effort 100% of the cases. 80% of them are kind of repetitive.
Right.
If we can improve those processes to buy us time, the edge cases, the 20%, are only getting 20% of our attention, but they require a lot more. Right. They're very complicated. They're very collaborative. And so if we can buy time here and devote time there, the collective good will be a win for just the industry. We just need to spend more time on the edge cases, less time on the throughputs.
Right.
We don't know which one's which, and this is going to help us. This is going to help us devote the right time to the right site.
Right. I mean, very insightful, and I think a lot of people are still learning this. So with that said, let's just talk about our last question, which is, and make it as practical as we can for the audience. What's one thing in each of your minds that the audience and whatever their business is can do in the next 90 days to start improving how they look at the business and how they maybe start incorporating automation in some way, shape, or form? I'm going to start with DJ.
Automation?
Yes.
Automation's a tricky word, right? And so we want to automate as much as possible, but we also want to, I think armament. I want to be able to give my business development team I want to equip them with the information needed that is leveraged by AI to go into a meeting to have data at their fingertips. They need to be able to go into a meeting and talk to any carrier or anybody out there with data that's extracted out of the files or data that's developed via AI,
Right.
so they can close the sale, make more money, leverage revenue. That's what we want to do.
Great. Thank you, DJ. Nat, real quick.
Oh, the biggest advice I can give is to track your workflow. I'm sure a lot of people think they understand their own business's workflows. But this experience that I've gone through with onboarding in Orsa has really put pressure on what I thought I knew. When you track your workflow, it's a little different. You know, we may go, how long do you spend doing this given task? And the person might say, oh, I spend about an hour. But the under talked about thing is when you're done with that 1 hour, what happens next? And it's, I wait for the next person to pick it up, but that person was busy and they didn't pick it up for 2 days. So did it really take you an hour or did it take you 2 days?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so understanding your workflow with almost like a heat map of where this thing goes, when and where and why, and then you can start to solve for things. And so we're not just saving the hour, we're skipping a step. And so, you know, when we're hired by somebody, they track when they give it to us to when it's delivered. All these internal stories of who got it next and why are going to just get compressed. And so if there was any like here and now advice, it'd be to track workflow.
Awesome.
And then from there, you're going to be informed to see how the tool like this might be helpful.
Great point. I know we talked about that earlier. It's a great point. Sean, besides signing up with an Orsa, what's the next step that people can take in the 90 days?
Can you guys hear me now? All right. All right, we'll make it work. So I'm going to answer this question, then I'm going to answer your other question about roadmap too. But I think, yes, there are a lot of AI tools out there. Obviously, like at Orsa, we have a kind of a free trial for data validation. Feel free to sign up for it. As long as you're within kind of wireless telecom, it applies. But I think a lot of people are scared of using all of these tools. I think we're really bad at predicting we're really good at seeing what jobs will go away, but we're really bad at seeing all the new opportunities that will come up. All of us exist here because there was a day where I made a call to DJ or Nat, somebody was sitting in a room and they had to switch kind of cables to connect people together. But all of those jobs are gone and a new industry is here. I think getting your team ready and bought in and setting the vision is really important because a lot of people are scared of what's going to happen to my job. The reality is none of us are going to do the same thing, from the CEO of the company to the engineer to the day-to-day kind of project manager. All of these jobs are going to change. There is no hiding it or sugarcoating it, but a lot of new opportunities are going to come up. So I think it's using the products that are out there are really important, but setting the right vision is the second part. Now, going back to your other question about the roadmap of Orsa, I don't know how much you guys heard, but there was a time where Q&A out of documents was really critical. We are one of the first companies doing it. Now all of that is commoditized. You can use ChatGPT for that. You don't need to pay Orsa, you could pay Orsa too, but a lot of those become commoditized. That's why we want to be 10 steps ahead of everybody else. So we are not using some wrapper around GPT or Gemini or whatever tool is out there. So I think all of these companies have existed for tens of years. There are a lot of knowledge trapped in people's kind of communication, in your documents, in different places. So what Orsa is doing and promoting here especially is a concept called Nora Brain. So it's the brain for your company and your infrastructure. It's the way you do things. And I think a lot of jobs that are going to be created are going to be about training and giving context to the model rather than just doing the basic tasks, because those are going to go away. And that is a big part of kind of what we offer now. And I think there are a lot of other exciting stuff that are coming up in the next few months. I can't talk about it a lot, but we'll see what happens next after you set up the infrastructure brain for your company.
All right, we're getting the hook. So let's thank our panel, please, if you don't mind.